Hey Tim, in this video I want to give a short overview of how to work with GitHub Copilot and when it makes sense to use it and when it doesn't make sense to use it. So let's start from scratch how to use it. Here is one example where Alexander opened an issue and he pointed out that we have a difference between what reviews are shown on the review page and what is the counter saying on the top. And so as he opened it, I was able to, like, in 5 minutes, just come to this issue, see that there is a reasonably good explanation, there is a screenshot, and GitHub Copilot can understand screenshots. And I just went here and assigned Copilot. So that was it. Basically, you can see from here, I didn't add any more context, nothing else. Basically, I just assigned it and it worked. And it opened a pull request for me. And it was able to go through our source code and figure out that there is a difference in how we are loading the counter on the top and how we are loading the items on the page. Basically figured out that this logic differs in some places and updated the code and added some tests. Of course, if I look at the tests, if I look at the code, I cannot be 100% sure that it works, but I pull it down and then I manually go through the lines and test it out. And if it looks like something that I would write, then it looks good. Of course, you need to be careful to review all the lines, to review all the logic. You basically need to react as a senior engineer reviewing junior engineer's work. You cannot just blindly apply this. But let's say the end result of this was that Alexander opened this in 7:53 and Copilot finished this in 8:27, so 30 minutes later. Basically, I think this was 2 runs of it. And I reviewed it, I merged it, and a bug release that I would probably spend, 30 minutes just figuring out where that problem is coming from. This I was able to completely hand off and get a reasonable result asynchronously and merge it to production. So this is one example, but if you're not convinced because it seems like simple stuff, the other thing that I can show you is that it can also deal with much more complex situations. And the much more complex situation is basically implementing a complete SMTP support for our mailer. This is a huge thing because we had to change the library, we had to write documentation, we had to write end-to-end tests, and so on and so on. So let's see how I handle that. Instead of just blindly jumping into this, I already have enough experience with GitHub Copilot that I know that I need to break it down into smaller steps. And I use sub-issues on GitHub to break it down. So first thing I do is I don't know where that script is. I think it was this one. So the first thing was that I'm a bit lost. But the first thing was that I opened an additional issue, which it seems that this was just done by the title without any other example, but this was changing the library that we are using for sending emails, and it created a pull request. I reviewed it, I made some manual modifications, and I merged it. Then I went back, and okay, that was the first step. I will now struggle to do this. The next step was to basically go to a next sub-issue, which I think in our case was end-to-end tests. I described it here, what I'm looking for, how that end-to-end test should be set up, and I kicked it off. And when I kick it off, I start working on something else, and then I just come back to review it. So that is my next tip. Don't give it too much things to do. Break it down like you would break any other task if you would implement it manually. And as you can see, 2 out of 3 steps are already implemented, and this is SMTP wasn't even our list to implement. This is just a completely sidetracked implementation. So to make it work effectively, you need to do 2 things. First is you need to be able to break it down into smaller steps. That's essential. And if you can, basically write as good as explanation as you can. For that, I recommend you to not type it, but to actually speak into the microphone, install some tool that can listen to your talking, and then summarizing it in the issue. It is much faster. You can express yourself much better if you are actually talking to a microphone instead of writing. The second thing is the importance of setting up good instructions for Copilot. And what instructions I'm referencing here. So the first thing that I will recommend is setting up these Copilot instructions. And this thing you don't do by hand. You can try to write good descriptions by hand, but actually I recommend to open an issue, give GitHub Copilot time to adjust what you want, what the behavior you want to improve. And then this is basically collecting all the knowledge, all the context that it needs from your project. And the more information you give it here, for example, always run these before committing, then various other stuff, the output will be much better. You can rely it much better than previously. So this is one thing, and this is GitHub specific. But if you are also using Cloud Code or Codex, which are great tools if you're working on something completely new UI, something where you really need to be in loop. So it's not just an addition to what you already have. Then I would also recommend you to have these files, which is an agents.md in the root of your directory. Look into how we did it with Operately. You describe the structure, you describe various other things, and basically store it here. And also add it to any subdirectory where you want to have additional context. For example, we have a component library that is specifically for UI. So we are writing down all the steps you need to produce better UI. So various steps we have here: how to check, how to have visual consistency, how to do coding, colors, theming, and so on. Again, you can write this by hand, but actually agents are much better at writing this. If you are watching the other video that I'm attached from Chris, who is working on the Phoenix framework, he also recommends don't write these things by hand. Create an issue, and based on that issue, iterate on these files. I think that's it. So to wrap it up, using GitHub Copilot is super simple. You just come to an issue, for example, any issue that I want. For example, this one, I give it more context, and then I go here and assign Copilot to do this. So let's try it out. Maybe not let's try it out. You can try it out on your project. That's it. I hope that it helped.